Everybody, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Really appreciate you joining us. Okay, thank you. I just got confirmation that audio and video are good. Appreciate that. See some people on that I know. Thanks for joining us out there in Minnesota, in Michigan, and gosh, all over the world. Really appreciate it today. Good to have you on. Quick logistics. Number one, I can't hear you on this type of webinar, so if you have any questions or comments, put those into the WebEx chat panel or the Q&A panel. I'll try to get to those during the presentation. If not, we'll have a Q&A section at the end. Also, we do record these. These will be up. This will be up on the website in a matter of a few days. There's already over 130 webinars up there. So if there's a topic that you need more information on, feel free to check that out. You know what? Let me pull up the website here and show you where you can find that. So here is the home page, and if you go here under Support Video Library Webinars, you're always welcome to go here. They're posted in chronological order, but you can always look at the categories down here along the right-hand side and get to a particular topic that you're interested in. So feel free to check those out. We highly encourage that. And if you still need more information on a topic in the survey that we send, let us know. If you want more information or on a different topic, and or if you'd like to co-host a webinar with us, we'd love to have you on. Love to highlight how you've used InduSoft to solve a particular problem. So let us know that. And if you give us your shirt size, we will send you a free T-shirt just for joining us today, just to show our appreciation. Thanks for attending, everybody. I know it's early for some of you, and later in the day for some of you as well, depending on where you're at. Today we're going to cover import tools for InduSoft Web Studio. And first of all, my name is Scott Courtier, and I'm Senior Technical Sales with InduSoft. And today we're going to cover, I'm just going to go over a couple of slides about the product, just to get you a little bit familiar with maybe how some of this will tie in, some of these import wizards will tie in. And then we'll talk about the different tools that are available, the benefits, the different versions you're going to need to be able to export so we can import. How do you get those tools? How do you license them? Where's the documentation? And finally, how to use them, and then a questions and answer section at the end. So quick introduction. Most of you on will already know about InduSoft Web Studio, and I'm not here to tell you everything about the product. You know, what is it? First of all, most of you know it's a very simple and easy to use HMI and SCADA software for industrial panels, embedded mobile devices, and very important is scalability. We run on Windows CE and mobile devices, Windows embedded platforms, Windows desktop, Windows server editions, and the neat thing is it's scalable across those platforms as well as even Linux and VxWorks. And so you can develop once and deploy on any of those different operating systems, and that makes for a really scalable, really nice environment. The interoperability or the communications, most of you will know that you can take InduSoft Web Studio, and if you think of this diagram with the tag names at the core of this diagram, we can communicate to over 240, I think we're actually over 250 drivers now, really to just about any PLC, controller, motion, temperature controller, lots of different devices, not just PLCs. We can communicate via OPC. We can be an OPC client using OPC DA, OPC UA, OPC.NET, and OPC XML, so we can communicate to anybody's third-party OPC server. And then we can also be an OPC server for DA, and shortly we'll be an OPC server for UA as well, and that's planned probably third to fourth quarter this year. Let's see. So lots of different interactions and capabilities in the product. So I just wanted to touch on a little bit of those because it'll enter into some of the discussions a little bit later on. So talking about these import tools, what are the benefits? And as you can imagine, the first bullet here is really what everybody thinks of, is minimize the cost and the time to convert from one product to another. And some of the other added benefits are to continue the same look and feel for operators. That's often very important if the operators are familiar with running a machine or a process and know where the buttons are located, You know, I've been into lots of plants where I've seen them basically touching buttons, touching screen buttons before the screen's even finished painting. It's like bam, 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 bam. We know how to get to here. We know where the next button's going to come up. And if you were to change that, the positioning of those buttons, you know, it could throw operators for a loop and make them less efficient. So we want to be able to continue the look and feel for operators, but also to provide a future enhancement path. What I've seen a lot of people do using these tools is to convert in a couple of phases, meaning phase one, just bring in the project as is and use it as is. Maybe there was a situation where they needed to bring in a project quickly and get going. But then the phase two is to enhance using the InduSoft functionality and just general openness of the product. Now things like we have over 250 built-in drivers, as I mentioned a little bit ago. So maybe you're bringing in a project from a competitive product that doesn't have certain drivers, doesn't have certain capabilities. Well, maybe bring that in, like I said, as a phase one and convert it and leave it as is. Let operators make sure that they're functionally familiar with it, and then start enhancing, adding database functionality, the scalability to the project, meaning being able to run on not only different operating systems, but different resolutions. So maybe you've been stuck with a small screen that's 640 by 480. Now you can go up to 1024 by 768 or even larger, you know, a 19-inch screen or a 20-inch screen. The scalability is there to be able to do that. Also have additional security options that maybe weren't available in other products. InduSoft has security, built-in security system, and we can also add tie-in to Microsoft Active Directory. So if you or your customers have built-in security in your plant that uses Microsoft Active Directory, and typically that's if you're logged into a Microsoft domain controller and you know, you type in that username and password in your familiar Windows screen, well, that's authenticating usually against Microsoft Active Directory. So why create the entire username and password base? Just tie into that. So some additional features, and again, many of you know InduSoft. I see most of you logged on, and most of you are probably very familiar with InduSoft and what it's capable of. But again, take that two-step approach and bring it in and as is, and then enhance it continuing on. Another option benefit is if you've got an older hardware line, proprietary hardware, and it fails, and replacement just isn't an option. It's not available, or you can't find it online, or it's got to be shipped from far away or built. You know, maybe lead times are very, very long. So this allows you to extend your machine or your product life cycle by being able to convert your applications from another product into InduSoft Web Studio. Now, often for our system integrators and some of our customers who build machines, and you're comparing products, you know, whether or not we can import from competitive products is often just a checkbox on a spreadsheet. And I hate to say it, but one of the things that I've seen over time is that people will say, do you have this import tool? We'll say yes. We'll give them a demonstration, and then they never use it. They find out that the functionality is and screen development is so superior in InduSoft Web Studio that they don't even bother bringing in their screens from their other products. They just develop new screens and start over in a new format, knowing that that's going to probably benefit them in the long run. So, you know, unfortunately, sometimes it's just a checkbox in the spreadsheet. Do you have this? Yep. Okay, we're going to choose InduSoft. And we move on. So there's lots of other additional benefits. We probably don't have enough time to mention them here today, but these are some of the key ones that I found and seen over time. So what import tools are actually available? We're going to talk about bringing in PanelMate screens. We're going to talk about PanelBuilder32 and FactoryTalk View ME and SE. So not only the machine edition, but the site edition from Rockwell. And just to make sure that we cover all of our bases, all of these products, as you can see the trademark there, are owned by their prospective owners and not products of Wonderware, InduSoft, Schneider Electric, So the PanelMate, PanelBuilder, FactoryTalk are, again, products of their prospective owners. More that I'm going to touch on is we also have an XML screen import tool and OPC DA tag imports that I'll demonstrate real quickly at the end. So also notice that for the FactoryTalk product or the import tool, we also have up on the website a nice little 2-page brochure that shows you some of the capabilities of that as well. Okay, so moving on, versions. This is kind of important. What versions can you bring in? So for PanelMate, you can bring in the Eaton and the Cutler Hammer versions, and I'm told, I haven't tested this, but I am told that versions 2.20.6 and 4.01. And I don't know the differences between those, but I was told that these are the different versions that we support. We might support other versions, and if you try it and it doesn't work, let us know. I've also been told that the PanelMate, there's a Schneider Electric version, but it probably we can't import from that. So if you want to do that, give us a call. Give us, contact us. Contact your InduSoft representative, whether it's your distributor, person within InduSoft. Let us know, and we can check it out. We can give it a try. We can work with you on that. As always, don't just abandon that. Just let us know. We'll try to help you out with that. For PanelBuilder32, I've been told version 3.82.1. Now, again, it may not be limited to just this version, but it's at least these versions and later. But later versions are not always 100% supported either. FactoryTalk View ME and SE. This was designed for version 8.10, but it should work for later versions as well. And as always, conversion utilities, import tools are not 100%. They never will be. They often can't be. But we've come very close on a lot of these. And what I'd like to point out is that, when you bring in these screens, bring in these projects into InduSoft Web Studio, you can then edit them and add to them and modify them and clean them up and make them as you need to. So if you've previously been stuck with screens that you couldn't modify, well, now once you bring them in, you'll be able to do that. So how do you get these tools? Well, if you've got InduSoft Web Studio installed, you already have them. And if you didn't know this, but up on the toolbar, up on the ribbon interface, you're going to find Import Wizards, and there's a drop down there. So let's see if I can demonstrate that here rather than showing you just a quick screenshot. We pull InduSoft Web Studio here. It's off my screen here. There we go. So if you have InduSoft Web Studio and you go to the Home tab up here, Import Wizard, and of course I have to close this. Import Wizard, you're going to see these different import tools for PanelMate, PanelBuilder, FactoryTalk, bringing in XML, and bringing in an OPC tag database as well. So those are already installed. The difference is that they simply need to be licensed for you to use them. Now, they're independently licensed from each other. Each tool is an additional license. And once licensed, you can then use them over and over again. And we definitely encourage you to use them over and over again. Convert as many projects as you can. We would like that. Convert as many projects as you can over to InduSoft Web Studio. The way that you would go about this is contact your InduSoft sales representative for more information, whether you purchase through an integrator, purchase through a distributor, purchase through one of our partner companies, or even directly from InduSoft. If you want to investigate using these tools, let us know. We can usually help you work on that and get you the license that you need. They're relatively low cost for the different options, but great time savers. So with that, where do you find the documentation? And what if you wanted to take a look at the documentation before you license the product? Understand if this is going to do what you need it to do. If you have the installation media, which now we're distributing on USB sticks, you can find that documentation under the folder, the documentation folder, manuals, and you can find those import tool documents right there. You can also find them up on the InduSoft website. So if I pull the website in here and you go to documentation, right there on the main navigation, you can see here there's the PanelBuilder, the PanelMate, and we even have the FactoryTalk import tool guide right there. So that'll give you, let me pull in the FactoryTalk user's guide here just real quick. So this is a PDF, and you can download that and take a look at this. This shows you how to use it. I'm going to come back and reference this document in a little while, but as I go through here, what I wanted you to see in each of these different manuals, there's what is supported and what is not supported to bring in from each particular product. So you can see that many things are going to be supported, but you need to pay attention to what is supported and what is not supported as well. So let's go ahead and pull that off screen here. And okay, so how to use these. Now this is the major section that I wanted to pay attention to, and I was surprised, I was going to focus and spend a lot of time on just the FactoryTalk import tool because that's kind of the latest and greatest from Rockwell, but it turns out, based on the longevity of some of these products, and now where they're at in their product life cycle, we're getting lots of requests to convert PanelMate and PanelBuilder32 type projects as well. So let's take a step back and take a look at the PanelMate. What do you need to export? First of all, that's the important thing. What do you need to export? And it's kind of a step-by-step to do this. So the first thing that you need is when you're using the PanelMate tool, it's going to store everything typically in a PM config folder. And it's best to zip up that entire folder and provide that. We've had applications where people have tried to just surgically remove the individual things that they need, and it turns out that we really do need everything in that folder to be able to bring that in. The next thing is that when you run this tool, it's very important that you need to run InduSoft Web Studio as administrator. So for those of you who don't know how to do that, when you have InduSoft Web Studio here in Windows, you can just right-click and then run as administrator. If you don't run it as administrator, it will not allow you to see the different projects in your PanelMate config folder. In that PanelMate config folder, you're going to find another subfolder called Model. And if when you do your import, if you just point at that Model folder, that will give you all the different projects that you've brought in from that PanelMate configuration. Note that PanelMate software does not install on a 64-bit PC. So if you've got, for example, Windows 7 or Windows 10, and it's a 64-bit runtime, you're not going to be able to install the PanelMate software. But all hope is not lost, because you can go back to your, let's say it's a Windows XP machine or even previous, you can go back to that and zip up or copy the PM config folder and provide that, and we'll still be able to bring in those projects. Now, when you convert these projects, some of the objects, we didn't have exact matching objects, so we created some special ActiveX objects. So some of the objects are not brought in as native InduSoft objects, are brought in as ActiveX objects. And recent changes that we've provided to this tool, very recent changes, allow you to do more editing. You can, for example, if some of the objects included in ActiveX object, you couldn't ungroup it. Now you can actually ungroup it and get at some of those objects that are tied to that or involved in that ActiveX object. Some things that are coming or planned is to allow you to do a little bit more finite editing on fonts. Sometimes these screen sizes were very small, often, for example, 640 by 480. And especially if you're trying to run this on a 15 or a 17 or 19-inch touchscreen, that's just too small. So some planned changes down the road will be to allow you to do a little bit more editing of the fonts that are inside of those objects. But a lot of the text can already be edited, and you have some scaling functions within InduSoft Web Studio that allow you to kind of take care of that automatically as is. But we're going to be we're planning on providing some tools that allow you to do that a little bit better. So that was I don't have an exact application that I can import. When I was doing my trial run this morning, I just realized that I don't have any non-customer applications that I can show. So for this webinar, I'm actually just going to be walking through these steps in the PowerPoint here. In PanelBuilder32, what you need really is to export is a single file text report, but it's a little bit more complicated than just the single file. You need to do a few simple steps. They're not complicated, but and they're all documented in the manual. The first thing that you need to do is install an existing Windows printer. It's not typically installed when you install Windows, but it's available for you to complete the installation. You have to go through the Add Printer, and you choose the following port, the Print to File option, and then you're going to choose a generic text-only printer. That's the name of the printer. So once you have that set up, then in PanelBuilder32, you're going to choose the Print Report option, which is found on their top toolbar, Tools, Options, Report Setup. And then when you go from there, you're going to see this screen here, and you get these different options for report setup. Basically what you're going to do is check all of the items on the left-hand side, and then make sure all the items on the right-hand side are unchecked. And once you do that, that's going to be the setup for the report. That's not actually printing the report yet. The next step is to go into the PanelBuilder32, and you're going to export graphics. There's an export graphics to the InduSoft Web Studio LIB folder. Now that's found where InduSoft is installed, not in your project folder, but under Program Files x86, one where InduSoft Web Studio version 8. There'll be a lib folder in there, and that's where you're going to export your graphics. Now that has to be done if you have graphics, bitmaps, for example, one by one. So those are going to be exported, and it's a simple kind of click export, but you have to do that one by one. That's limitation in the PanelBuilder32 software. Once you do that, then you can print your report. So just go to File, Reports, and choose that generic printer that you just installed. Once you install that, you have to choose size A3 paper, which this is a little, like for us in the U.S., it's like, huh, what's that? Well, that's the format that we chose to have that output in. And you also need to choose landscape as the orientation. And then once you do that, the next step is what does it include? Well, you're going to include the screen list, and we've already exported the screen images manually. Because this is going to be a text-based report, we can't include the screen images in that output. So we're going to exclude that or uncheck that. The object summary, so these two checkboxes will need to be checked. The screen images will uncheck. And then when that report prints, that's basically going to create one text report. And so you're going to make sure that you copy that output, that text report, and the bitmaps you should have already exported to the LIB folder. And again, I'm going to point out where that is. Let me just open up my File Explorer here. And we'll go to, I'll bring this on screen here in a second. So if you go here, typically on a 64-bit machine, it's going to be Program Files x86, Wonderware InduSoft Web Studio version 8, and there's a lib folder in here. So you put that text report output in here, you'll put your bitmaps in here, and then you'll run or start a new InduSoft project. Now, there's a couple of things that are important to understand. When you start a new InduSoft project, you're going to pick a resolution. And when you start a new project specifically for this import tool, it's not critical that you pick the right resolution, because as I understand it, we're going to read the resolution from the project, and it will automatically change your project over to that resolution. It's another thing is you need to select the .scr as the extension. Again, let me open up InduSoft Web Studio. That can be found here under Project, Viewer, and let's see, I think it's in here. Where is it? There it is, right there. Use .scr extension for screen files. So you would have to check that checkbox. We made this modification a few versions ago because we were having problems with antivirus programs were blocking the .scr extension because that got confused with screensavers. So one of the reasons why we changed that file extension to .scc was to prevent antiviruses from performing a false positive. So you need to check that .scr, and once you do that, then you can go to your Home tab, Import Wizard, and then choose your PanelMate import tool. And then that's all you would do would be to point it at that folder. And sorry, I switched gears here. I need a little bit. You would point it at the text file that you would find that you exported in that lib folder, and then it's going to give you a choice to choose. Let me go back here because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to choose Import Wizard PanelBuilder, and then you're going to point it to that report file that's in that lib folder, and then you can choose whether or not you're going to import screens, import configuration or not, and then if you're using a ControlLogix PLC, you're going to have to give it an IP address as well, and CPU slot number, and whether or not you want to add a prefix in front of the tag names. This way, if you're bringing in multiple screen sets or multiple PLCs, you can add that prefix, maybe say, for example, PLC 0, and then the next import PLC 1, so you can kind of combine projects together also. And once you do that, then you're going to be presented with a screen that looks like this, that allows you to check or uncheck which tags you want to bring in, which ones are conflicting. A lot of times, like time and date will conflict. But again, that presents you with that list and allows you to check those off. And at that point, you select that, click Finish, and that will bring in your project for PanelBuilder32. So the next one I'm going to cover here is FactoryTalk. So FactoryTalk View ME and SE screens can be brought in, and not only screens, but we can import tags, screens, alarm configurations, and communication settings. And something to note as we're going through this is that we don't have a dedicated RSView32 import tool. I've been told that you can convert using Rockwell tools to convert an RSView32 application to FactoryTalk first, and then you can use our FactoryTalk import tool to bring that in. So, so the steps that you would do, they're fairly easy. The first steps that you would do would be to export your tags. And essentially in the FactoryTalk View software, you're going to go to the tools, and then you're going to select the Tag Import and Export Wizard, and then you can select Export FactoryTalk View Tag Database to CSV file. And that's going to allow you to export your tags to a CSV file. Then the next step is to export your graphics displays. And so you can go to the Explorer window within the FactoryTalk tool, right-click on Displays or Global Objects Editor, and select Import and Export, and then follow the steps to export those displays. Next, to get to the alarms, basically you're going to choose the alarm files, very similar to what you did on the tags. In fact, it's going to be basically the same steps. You're going to choose Tag Import Export Wizard and export that tag database to CSV file. Now, I was looking at these steps, and I've never actually done the export from FactoryTalk. I've always been given those files. And to me in the documentation, this says that you're going to export that tag database. I'm assuming that's correct, but this seems a little odd for the alarm files are going to be exporting the tag database. There may be a different step that you do here, and I honestly copied this from our documentation, but I'm a little concerned that this is twice you're exporting the tags, but maybe that is a different step. I don't know if there's anybody on that has used this to that degree, but maybe they can answer that. Is this really exporting the tag database again for the alarms? So the next step that you do here is then you would open up InduSoft Web Studio, create a new project, and then run the import tool. Now, again, I realized this morning as I was doing a trial run that I only have customer projects that we've actually signed non-disclosure agreements, so I can't show you any of those. I'm going to see if I can, for the afternoon webinar, maybe get some of those that are non-proprietary and be able to bring those in. But the steps are basically you point where you've exported in the previous steps that I just showed the tag CSV file, so you browse to that. And then also similar on the PanelBuilder application that I just showed, you can use a prefix for that and put a prefix in front of those tags. So again, it could be like PLC 0 or Station 1 and then that way you can combine multiple applications. Then you would point to your screens, and you can choose multiple screens simultaneously when you bring that in. So typically a project is going to have more than one screen, so you can browse to that folder and then select multiple of those screens. And then you can bring in your alarm CSV. Now, this one is quite possibly that same tag folder. As I mentioned, I haven't done the actual export from FactoryTalk before, but so you're going to possibly see, well, you'll see that CSV file and then browse to that directly, get that file. And then you have to choose the FactoryTalk application folder where that lives, and then whether or not you want to use the drivers in whether or not you want to import those. And then you go through that same similar thing that we did here with PanelBuilder, is choose those tags and which ones you want to import. So check and uncheck those, and that's pretty much it. And then your project gets brought in. I do want to mention that we have made several updates to this tool fairly recently, and as we go along, we're improving this over and over and over again. So the few things to pay attention to is that we do support both FactoryTalk ME and SE. And what I'd like to encourage is that if you find anything wrong with this, let us know, because we'd always like to improve it and make it better and work with you on it. Let's see, what else did I find? When I've gone through imports, one of the things that I found, and I don't know if this is necessarily true because I haven't used this, the latest version of this, but one of the things that I found was that if you fill out all of these fields all before you click next, I found that the tool didn't work as well as if you did the tags only and then click next and went through that, and then went back into the tool and did screens, and then did alarms, and then separately did the application folder. So I found that doing them line by line as opposed to all at once seemed to work a little bit better, and it brought in more of the screens. Something else we've done since the earlier versions is we used to, if the import tool found a problem in one of the screens, it would just abort and not let you know, and it would skip over that screen completely. Well, we've modified that now so that the later versions of the tool will do as best as it can. If it comes to a part that it doesn't understand, in the output window, it will let you know that it can't do something, and then it will move on to the remainder of the file and try to get as much as it can. So we're improving that functionality rather than just aborting and skipping the screen and leaving you with nothing. It'll try to get as much as it can. So those are the types of improvements that we're doing and plan to do going forward. We really think that this is a valuable tool, almost an invaluable tool, especially for those of you who have projects, integration type projects that you can bring in. I need to mention a handful of things here because you know, no import tool is going to be 100%, but we've done some benchmarking. We've had some different groups use different tools, and especially for the FactoryTalk import tool, we found that on a fairly complicated project, honestly it was not an easy project. That the group that used this estimated that they saved about 85+% of their time by using this tool. So, and just to give you an example, just some simple math here, if it would have taken 100 hours to develop the project, it only took them 15. So you can really see the cost savings and the time savings. And then once you do bring in a project from one of these conversion tools, you can definitely then continue to edit your project and work with it as if it was a native InduSoft project. So you can add to it. You know, maybe you always wanted an extra button here or text to say this, but you could never get to it in particular software. Well, now you can add that, or add that database functionality, add that trending, add the features that were never available in the other products. All right. So I'm going to move on and talk a bit about the XML and OPC tools. There was a note here. Let's see if I can read this. And let's see. Going back, I had some notes from somebody in the PanelMate tool. It also works in version 2.20.6 through the final release of PanelMate software, which was 2.50.6. So thank you for putting that in. Really appreciate that. And also noted that there are conversion tools that can be done to convert a Modicon Schneider application to a Cutler Hammer version that then can be imported. So depending on who you're working with, those tools may or may not be available, but it sounds like those options live out there somewhere. So thank you for adding those in. Appreciate that. Moving on to the XML and OPC imports. If you didn't know this, a few years ago we actually added, by customer request, an XML screen import tool. And now screens can actually be imported and defined in an XML format, and then they can be brought in. They can be brought in either at development time or even live on the fly during runtime, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Let me open up folder here. I'm going to actually go to an older version of InduSoft where I actually have a demonstration of this here. And if I go in here, go into this project, let's see, where is it here? Let me take a look here. So I have some XML files here that I was doing as an example. So here's just an objects file. And if you're not familiar with XML, XML is really just a text file, but it has a particular definition to it or a structure to it. So if I open this up with just a text editor here, and I have this off screen, let me make sure that I have some other things closed that I don't want to show here. All right, so I bring this text editor, and this shows you the structure. Now, in order to get the documentation for this, you have to purchase the license for this, and along with that license to use this also comes the definition and the documentation of how to use this. But I'm going to show you here real quick. For example, the attributes is how the screen is set up. Is there a background? Is there security on the screen? I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. What's the height and the width? And then there's just an object list. Is there, for example, lines, rectangles, polygons, so on and so forth. And so this defines in text exact pixel by pixel placement for the objects for a particular screen. And so again, that can be done at development or even during runtime. There's built-in functions included in InduSoft Web Studio that you can import a screen live during runtime. Now, why would that be important? One of the things that I've helped the customer do is they had a machine that they shipped but they shipped it to a customer or to their customers, and the machine was configurable after it left their facility. So in this case, it was a machine that made thermal-formed parts. So you might find plastic cups, to-go containers that you might find in a restaurant when you have food that leftovers and you want to take that home. And thermal forming is basically, real simply, you put a warm piece of plastic over a mold and you suck it, you vacuum it into the mold. Well, when this customer shipped to these machines, they didn't make the molds. The customers made whatever products they wanted to out of that. And so what I ended up doing is making a report in InduSoft Web Studio, our standard-based reporting tool. And so I just went into our reports here, and I made the format of the report the XML output that was defining a screen. And I put all the stuff that I just showed you in there that defined the screen, but I made it configurable so that tags actually changed the objects that were going to be on the screen. So I outputted the file to a .xml format, and then I ran the built-in functions. Let me see if I can find those functions here real quick, that allow you to import that during runtime. If I can spell and talk here. So there's import XML functions. So you basically give it the XML file to bring in, and again, here we go. You can give it the XML file. You can give it some optional parameters here, and gives you some good feedback, and create screens on the fly using XML. So it's a very powerful tool to be able to use. Let me show you using that. So if I create a brand new project here, just going to call it project and start fresh. I'll start with that size there. And if I use this tool and I go to Home, Import Wizard, and I choose Studio XML Screen, and then I point it, and I can choose whether or not I'm going to import duplicate screens or not and replace anything that's going to overwrite with the imported screens. I can then browse, and I'll choose that, let me choose that same file that I was going to here. And if I choose, for example, objects, and I bring that in, click Next, and in just a few seconds, now this is going to give me the option if there was tags. I don't have any, so I'm going to just say OK. And what that's done is that's brought that objects.xml in as objects screen, and these are now standard InduSoft objects. So that first thing that you saw in that project was a line. And what I've done is I've used this maybe if I wanted to get some exact drawing. Sometimes especially with our polygons, it's a little difficult to particularly maneuver where a dot will be, where a corner will be. So what I've done often is use that XML import tool to very precisely define where object boundaries are, particularly for polygons, and then be able to bring those in and use those. So in addition to the objects, you can also define many other things, many additional things. So for example, if I bring in, let's say, save this, and again, these are native InduSoft objects at that point. Let me bring in another one here. Let's see if I can do this and bring in animations. So I can bring in some that have animations on them, and yeah, I didn't think so. This is one that I had been working on previously, but you can bring in really any full screen with not only objects but animations. You can even define symbols in there as well. So it's a very feature-rich option for doing that. But there is, you do have to have a license to enable that, and really why we did that is because we recognize that this is going to need a little bit more support than your average feature in the product. So if you have an interest in that, definitely let us know. And again, once the native objects have been brought in, you can edit those after the fact. I also wanted to show you the import from OPC DA tags. Now I happen to have an OPC server running here, and if I wanted to bring in tags from that OPC server, that's an OPC DA server. I actually have several in my laptop, but if I go to OPC server database, this is going to import the item names. In OPC functionality, they don't have tag names, they have item names. It's kind of similar to tags. I would then choose whether or not I wanted to replace or do not import tags. I could then choose whether this was a local or a remote, and I'll tell you, my history with remote OPC security is always an issue, and permissions and getting through that is often a tough go. But if you place your OPC server on your same PC, it's usually pretty easy. So for example, since I have several here, I can just drop this drop down, and I have lots of different OPC servers. If you're not familiar with Software Toolbox, I highly recommend that you go check out their website, softwaretoolbox.com. Got a lot of nice resources for HMI and SCADA type software. So I have a demonstration version of their OPC DA server, and I could even navigate down further into the tree view if I wanted to. I could go down further into branches. I could also apply a prefix in front of that, click on next, and what it's going to do now is going to go out and pull that OPC server and present you with the OPC item names. And then you can bring those in, very similar to how I showed you on some of the other import tools, where you can choose whether or not you want these to come in as tags. You can exclude, for example, the ones that are going to conflict, date, time, things of that nature. And then when you click Finish, it's going to tell you, hey, we brought in 475 tags. And so those have been not only brought in, but if I go here under my Communications tab and go to OPC, you can see that it generated that worksheet generated by the import wizard, and that it has tied and created the items in the OPC server and tied those to the item name and brought in that server identifier in there as well. So that's the basic of that. And I'm not 100% sure of this, but I think that the OPC import is not a separate license. I believe that that's included with a normal license. I couldn't find anything that said otherwise, but all the other import tools, the XML import tool, to get the documentation and the resources for that, that's an add-on, and then the PanelBuilder, the PanelMate, PanelBuilder32, the PanelMate, and the FactoryTalk are all add-on licenses. So just some notes. I thought I had this in here. Maybe I don't, but let me double check this. There we go. I added it in the wrong spot. Let me swap these around here real quick. So important for all of the tools that you should always be aware of is that none of these import tools are 100% conversion complete. You should always confirm functionality and operations before deploying a real-world application. You should always back up your projects before starting this. And if you encounter an issue, we'd like to know about it. Don't be all frustrated, and we'd like to improve the tools if we can. So definitely feed that up through your InduSoft representative and let us know. So with that, that's the presentation that I have. I'm going to open it up now for questions. So if you have any questions, put those into the chat panel or the Q&A panel, and I'll try to answer those. And hopefully this was some good information for you and made you aware of some tools that maybe you weren't aware of before, save you some time, maybe get you some new business if you're an integrator, save you some time if you're a machine builder or an end user. Okay, so I've got some good feedback here. Thank you. Appreciate that. Some offers to send some other application notes and things, so appreciate that. Any other questions? While we're waiting, what I'll do is I'll go in and put the slide, how to get a hold of us if you need to. Again, we're recording this, so this will be posted up online here in just a matter of a couple of days. We'll be sending out a follow-up survey. Let us know how we did today. Let us know if this was useful for you. Let us know if you'd like to see any other future topics covered in detail or different details. And also let us know if you'd like to co-host a webinar with us. Always love to have real customer applications on, showing how you've used InduSoft to solve your real problems and help you out there. I don't see any questions coming in, so last call for that. Well, with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully we gave you some good information, good insights today. And I'd like to thank everybody. Fill out that survey. Let us know how we did. And let us know your shirt size. We'll send you a free T-shirt just for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Everybody have a great day. Thank you for joining us, and see you again on another InduSoft webinar in the future. Thanks. Have a great day.